here's something we hope you'll really like.
It's time for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We have completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
We're traveling through a dimension both of sound and ideas. We're at a place where the mind can comprehend and devise a wireless transmitter, measure time and light. Astonishing? Perhaps. But you can find it in a place that's known as...
Planet Green Trees.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen. The Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
Alrighty.
We have launched.
Welcome, everybody. Listen to Planet Green Trees, episode number 466. I'm your host, Michael Komorn. We're calling tonight's show I Can't Breathe. And want to thank everybody for listening and welcome you to what's going to be a couple hours of talk about the topics of the day over the past week. We have a number of different topics we plan to cover. We have some musical guests, and I'm going to tease all that in a second. But first, I want to introduce to you the community entertainment, as we like to call them. And we can start by acknowledging, although they're not responsive sometimes, the group over in what we like to call the bunker. Welcome the bunker guys, Tommy and Justin. Okay, and we'll move around the circle here. And brings us to the founder of Michigan Parents for Compassion. And I understand he's going to speak in an Australian accent tonight because of the darkness that we've all been living in. Please welcome Jim Powers.
Definitely not speaking in an Australian accent, but good evening, Michael. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. Glad to be alive and well on this wonderful Thursday evening. Welcome to the show. I know we've got a great show ahead of us. Some great music. We've got Dirty Dan, which I'm not sure how that's going to work, but should be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm excited for the show, and yeah.
Well, good stuff. As we move around the room, we have, of course, Amanda Joslin, who is taking the microphone and gone out into the public there, and it's getting what's happening word on the street. She's here with us tonight, and we understand there's going to be a reporting from Ypsilanti from her. Please welcome Amanda Joslin.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, that's right. We've got a little update from Washtenaw County. And so we'll give you some footage and some info about what we saw there. We got some really good music lined up, so that'll lighten the mood afterward. And other than that, good day, mates.
There you go.
There's your Australian accent.
That's right. And as we move around the room here, my thing is actually black, but let's get to it straight here. Just to make sure we cover everybody. We have, of course, calling all the way in from, I think, Austin, Texas, or somewhere near there. Glad to have him back on the show, my dear friend and colleague, Jeff Frazier. Jeff Frazier.
Hola, Miguel. Encantado de estar con usted. Y oye, tengo una pregunta nomás. ¿Qué chucha está pasando con este huevón de policía de Milwaukee? I can't breathe.
Milwaukee. Now notice that he did say that in Australia.
Minneapolis.
All right, of course, yes.
Yeah, but not too long ago, there was an incident in Milwaukee.
That's right.
Yeah, también Milwaukee. But anyway, happy day. Hello, everyone.
Happy day. And, of course, joining us another, is he still there? Another attorney. I thought I saw him. Let's see. I work my screens here. Of course, another attorney and colleague. Many know him as Uncle Alan. He is it's often confused with Muammar Gaddafi. He's not to be mistaken with him. He's my dear friend, Alan Peisner. Alan Peisner.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. And I just want to add to Jim's introduction, fuck Bill Schuette.
All right.
Yeah.
Send him to Minneapolis or Milwaukee.
And moving around the room, he's looking very Flint, shall we say. He's got his hat, but it's a Komorn Law hat, so I don't know if that says in grand total, but glad to have him. He's the former news director of PGT. Always good for a joke and a song and dance. You can check him out on TikTok as well. I think he's got a dance account that's rather popular and goes viral quite frequently. Please welcome Big Daddy Rick Thompson.
Hello, everybody. Hey, got the normal shirt on, got the Komorn hat on, got some great joint in my mouth. All is normal. All is good.
Nice. And of course, the person responsible for everything, we're glad to have him here. He's very soft-spoken, doesn't like to say a lot, but let's welcome him anyways. His name is Jamie Lowell. Jamie Lowell, thank you.
Hello.
Exactly. So I hit everybody, right? Did I miss anybody? Okay. So we've got a number of shows, as has been mentioned. Amanda Joslin is going to be reporting from Ypsilanti. We're going to address a editorial that is of significance. Let the caregivers supplement medical marijuana shortages. We have a special musical performance live from Zoom from Sean Blackman around 9 o'clock. We've got, of course, the jurors walk off to take phone call as Texas tests the first jury trials via Zoom. And Jeff Frazier, I understand, was not part of that jury, nor part of the attorneys' parties to the action. And of course, more Texas news. I think it was in Houston where 91 more drug cases tied to ex-Texas cop are to be dismissed, tainted. And of course, Michigan Court of Appeals orders defiant Owosso barber to shut it down. And those are the topics we'll be covering.
Shutting her down.
What's that?
Shutting her down.
So so those are the topics. I was going to rant for a quick second if we had a moment to explain. Was there anything I was supposed to do? I read the disclaimer. Maybe read the disclaimer later. But I wanted to just get a little bit into this I can't breathe story because it's rather significant. I think worthy of talking about tonight. Of course, we're talking about the recent, but what has become unfortunately common, the video of a black man being beaten, killed, or abused by a law enforcement officer. And in this particular case, it was George Floyd it was in Minnesota, I understand. And I know the video's out there. We're not showing it, we're not playing it, but it's rather disturbing when you see the police officer with his knee on the neck of George Floyd, facilitating an arrest, and you hear him say over and over again, "I can't breathe." And shortly thereafter, taken away in an ambulance, he was without a pulse. And so I wanted to bring this up and talk about it and rant a little bit about it because it's certainly something that could be overlooked because of the pandemic and everyone's concerns for their place in the world and all the concerns we've talked about and complained about and addressed other people's complaining about the barber, people needing a haircut, etc. But even in light of all that, I think it'd be ill-advised to let this pass without some kind of discussion about it because it seems to be happening over and over and over again. It is unexplained. It's a phenomena that was not, like, no one's doing anything about it. Like, we have a pandemic going on and action is taken. And as this George Floyd murder takes place in broad daylight, there's so many questions that remain unanswered. And not just for the case itself, but the how and why something like that can happen. I mean, you've essentially, in order for it to happen, think about the types of things that have to be in the mindset of the actors and participants. It's not just that he thought he could get away with it. It's that he believed that the entire unit around him could support it, that it's a actual culture, one might say, that is being lived and that it's okay, that behavior is okay. And it spreads even beyond just the law enforcement community and into the criminal justice system and into the prison system. And there's a lot of things that make this point, in addition to the data associated with who has caught the COVID-19 virus. And it is unexplainable as to why we can identify by data and statistics certain classes of people that are falling into categories here that are disproportionate to the population in the state and in the country. And specifically, I'm talking about, and maybe I don't know the statistics of police officers beating up and or death resulting from interactions with white men or white women, what have you. But there seems to be, and I don't know if it's that there's just more video now to catch it. You know, I think I have an opinion about that it happens quite a bit, and just because of video, we're seeing it more and more. But not just the actions of beating or killing, but all the other factors that go in the racially profiled traffic stops and the effectuations of arrests and all that goes along with that have created this disproportionate statistical data of the people that are brought into the criminal justice system that start with these police encounters that are disproportionate and end up in jail or prison. That's disproportionate. And I'm not just saying these are statistics that is in the recent Governor Whitmer's commission on prison overcrowding. And that report concludes that they are wasting time, money, and resources arresting and bringing people to court for what should be civil infractions, but they're not creating them civil infractions. They're bringing them to court. They're resulting in warrants. They're resulting in, you know, monies owed, the pay to play, and the court being you owing money to the court and being in prison because of a debt or debtors' prisons is what has evolved out of this, and it tears apart certain groups within our community at large. I mean, you don't have to go much far within our own cannabis reform community to know that of the individuals that are arrested for cannabis, even though the use up until legalization, as far as everyone knew, was equal, disproportionately much greater for Black and brown people. And but those are just the things that bring them into the system. I'm going to talk from the greater scale of what is going on and how can we, we have to talk about this. We have to figure out what's going on. I don't know that we can figure out a solution at this point, but we certainly need to talk about and point out what exactly is taking place. And beyond that, we have this phenomena also that oftentimes, if charged, it's a long time coming before they are charged, that it's not always necessarily the charges that would normally be brought against a citizen. And furthermore, they seemingly are very, very difficult to obtain convictions in various jurisdictions across the state. We've seen this over and over and over again, seemingly justifying the behavior that brought the officers into court. Now, there have been situations that have gone both ways where officers have been convicted of crimes, but the ones that seem to be the most disastrous and most offensive are the ones seemingly that the officers are getting away with it. And I want to take the position tonight, and I want to see if we can talk about this a little bit as to this is not acceptable, and it is something that is in our in the marketplace of events that are occurring amongst this pandemic, should not be overlooked. And it's probably a good time to focus why something like that would happen, especially now when things are supposed to be, scaled back, not so policing and law enforcement under the circumstances, fewer people are out and there's less activity. Law enforcement has proclaimed they're not going to be responding to property crimes. Some of them have proclaimed they're not going to be following the law, enforcing executive orders or whatnot. But there's a long list of individuals. You should probably name them all. Those that have been taken too early just from their interaction with a law enforcement officer. And what I'm saying is this: there are some that may, in any of these situations, suggest that there was police officers were interacting with the suspect. They maybe they would argue they have a right to investigate, they have a right to detain, or right to arrest if believed probable cause. And that may be true or may not be true. That's not the question I'm talking about. But what I am trying to point out is that in those circumstances, under no acceptable, we should never be in a position that we're accepting a death of another human would result from that encounter, absent some kind of obvious threat of death or something like that. And that is not the case in this George Floyd case, and it's not the case in many of the other videos that have captured the same kind of atrocities that have taken place. And I know that the mayor of Minnesota acted quickly. He wanted the officers fired immediately. Usually they'll do an internal investigation, which is always problematic. Another thing to think about, that when these things take place, who's doing the investigating? Most of the time it's the agency that, could potentially be involved in it. And the questions of transparency are always lingering. And oftentimes there's an attempt, it seems, to protect the officers from within the law enforcement community, is what is commonly known as the thin blue line. But we've seen it too much. And, it's got the same kind of, it should have the same kind of national attention as this pandemic right now. I can't, there's no better time than to recognize the mistakes of it, take some steps to do this. And I don't know what the answers are, but I do think it begins with the training and procedures and protocol. And even if I may be so forward as to, I don't know, like the legislature needs to, the federal legislature needs to amend the immunity provisions, the governmental immunity provisions for 1983 civil rights actions. Because as it's been said many times, you're not going to make them stop until they have to write a check.
They have to be personally liable.
They don't have any money to be chasing that judgment for a long time. But the point being that in order for, if the cities and the counties are paying and writing checks, that forces them to take different steps in the hiring process and the training process, and ensuring that there's situations in place that they know they're going to be accountable, and extra steps are taken. Because I don't think whatever's producing this is I mean, listen, I blame the officer unequivocally. They pull it, but it is existing within an environment and culture that has got to have some accountability here. It's happening too often. And I'm saying that in a way, I mean, this is to minimize, and this is minimized. I don't mean to minimize it, but the idea of like the DRE as a scientific method of determining cannabis impairment is not a reality. It's all they have. It doesn't work. What's the answer? You got to go back to the drawing board and figure something else out. I don't know what it is, and I'm not a scientist that's got to figure it out. But the shit they're using now is not viable. Same idea here, that whatever is going on out there, the statistics just on the disproportionality says to us on that alone that there's something fundamentally wrong here. But then you take it a step further and you see these other types of outrageous, unequivocally racist acts that have no care for human life. And it's our law enforcement officers that we are, want to believe are there to serve and protect. And it's not that. And I don't know what you do about it. I mean, I think it goes back to the training. I mean, I give an example.
The training has nothing to do with it. And I really want to hear Steve's opinion on this, but before Steve goes, let me give this one example that. So me and Steve actually went to look at some evidence in Dearborn Heights, and we had the officer in charge that was head of their drug task force or what have you, total old school drug warrior. Tried to be polite to us, tried to interact with us because he had to, but really did not like anything that we stood for. He was the guy that was, looking for ways to arrest people for cannabis, looking for the exempt, try to pull them out of their immunity. He may have even been one of these officers at one point that was purchasing cannabis from people off of Craigslist. Like that was one of the easy ways that they would make arrests and whatnot. But we were there and looking at some evidence, and he ultimately had to leave because we wore him out, stayed there too long. And he brought in like a replacement. It was like a 27-year-old, relatively new police officer. He wanted us to know that his family had been police officers, and that he said that with pride and with integrity. And what he also said is that he could give two shits about marijuana. And I believed him. And I could look back and say, like, he's been, if you chart back the time that he would have been at the police force, he was at the police force at a time when medical marijuana was a reality and, legalization not too far out. So he grew up and was, educated in a framework where that was certainly different than, contraband per se, in the era before that.
So I do think there's something to be said about, you got generations of new officers coming in and the ability to train and change the culture that exists there. But I do think it goes further than that. It's something to do with, an ongoing racist problem in our country and the divide that we have and some of the discourse that is unattainable here. And it's very unfortunate, not just politically, but obviously in cultural sense and also within the institutions of our society, just total unfairness. But we do have Steve Miller, who's been very kind with sharing some of the insight on this. And Steve, what do you say to all this? Is there an answer out there? Is training the answer? Is it something that could be stopped? Why does it happen? Answer all those at the same time. You got 30 seconds. Go. Just kidding.
30 seconds.
Take as much time as you want. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I think I have a theory, and I've actually written this down. A lot of police officers now, let's put them in the age group of 35 years old and older. And maybe 35 is, maybe even it could be 40 and older, maybe 35 to 40, they're in there too. But of white families that grew up in, middle class to upper middle class, white subdivisions, in which racism was okay. I refer to it as systemic racism. And when the white families all gathered as we grew up, they talked, they didn't mind using the N-word or whatever other racial or bigoted slur they could come up with at neighborhood parties and whatnot. And, like, for instance, the subdivision I grew up in, St. Clair County, Jim. A nice family in the sub had adopted a little black girl. But so as to not shock the whole neighborhood, it was led to believe that this little girl was Mexican, as if to, it's a little lesser of a brown person. That's not as bad or something, Those things, my point being in all of this is that this is how a lot of police officers, probably in that age range right now, from 35 years and older, were raised in households where racism was okay. And some of us, like for me, I went into the military and quickly learned that, you work and hang out with and work for and with and on different teams and work teams with people of all races. So it breaks down, the military for me broke down, all that systemic racism that had been ingrained in me growing up. A lot of officers didn't go in the military, didn't have something that, and just because you go in the military doesn't mean that's broken out of you. Some are able to keep it and do what they need to do to get through their term in the military. But for me, there was something that happened to where I changed, my thought process changed. So my theory is that you've had so many, and the majority of police officers probably in the country are white, males and females that grew up in households that where racism or to some extent was okay. And so that's what you have when you have these situations. And I think it's just led us to where we are today. And it's obviously, people of color are treated differently and there are use of force issues, and it's over and over and over again. Even with video. Now we're, like you said, Michael, we're just seeing it more. This has been occurring a long time. I think it's probably less, I would say, and this is just a guess, that it's probably happens less now than it did, maybe in the 70s, 80s, but it still exists, and now it gets caught on video. And it's awful. That video is horrible with that Minnesota video.
Well, here's an interesting dynamic is that I just saw that the police chief, James Craig, held a press conference on Thursday to address the Minneapolis Police Department's handling of the death of George Floyd. Craig was joined by Reverend Dr. Wendell Anthony, president of NAACP.
That's the Detroit police chief, though, that you're describing. You didn't mention it's the Detroit police chief that's talking about the Minneapolis situation, right?
Correct. He did a press conference to address this exact thing. And it basically, at the end of the day, he declares that the officer who killed George Floyd should be arrested for murder. And this may be another aspect where it happens. You know, I know that I don't know what the statistics are of black officers and white officers, but it's certainly that's certainly an area. I mean, Detroit is one that we've got to,
You know what officers aren't taught enough? And this could, if we could ingrain this into officers' heads, that it's okay to disengage. Now, we had a good use of force trainer at Canton, and I do brag about a lot of things we did at Canton because we did do a lot of things right there. And we had a really good use of force instructor there. And, you know, it's okay to disengage. You tell officers it's okay to disengage, you know. And a lot of officers don't think that. They think that once you're engaged, you can't stop. If you stop and back off, then, that could be seen as cowardice amongst other officers. No, you have to beat this guy down till he can't move anymore so as to not get, suffer peer pressure from your officers. So it really needs to be ingrained in officers at this point in time. It is okay to disengage.
What's
when
that?
You see yourself, when the only way you can hold a guy down is by sticking your knee on his neck for 10 minutes, you know what? Maybe you disengage.
Over a larceny.
That's a military
crime.
It's a military style.
I just read an article that it was the guy they thought he was using a counterfeit bill at the store.
Yeah.
And then they wouldn't take the bill at the store. He left. He came back in, actually used the bill, and then they caught it after he left. So he was still standing out front, and the employee did what their procedure said to do, is to, when you have a counterfeit bill, you have to call the police. So if that's the case, I mean, that's a stand there and talk to them.
Yeah.
That's a military style control technique that's taught in a dehumanizing way. When you start telling law enforcement officers that they don't have to respect the individual rights of the people that they're arresting, that it's okay to do anything to them on scene, and that it'll all get sorted out afterwards. And when you have prosecutors and police chiefs that back up these guys over and over and over again so that they get the feeling like anything they do, they can walk away from, they're exonerated with, that gives someone a sense of power. If you were told there was no police on I-75 all the way to the Mackinac Bridge, would you obey the 70-mile-an-hour speed limit? Probably not. If there's no oversight, people do the worst things.
I lost my train of thought.
There's something that can add to this. So this has been an ongoing thing since Michael Brown was one of the situations that kind of set off some national attention, started the Black Lives Matter, if I'm not mistaken, and created some attention to this. But this, up to that point, the killings by U.S. police officers logged at twice the previous rate under the new federal program. So the U.S. government pilot program, which draws on information collected by this publication, The Guardian, publishes first data gathered under the new hybrid counting system. As I'm reading this article, it clearly reflects that up until the point of the implementation of this new counting system, they were underreporting the number of deaths caused by police officers by 50%. Because let me read this out. The new hybrid system combines a review of open source data, including the series counted with the survey of local authorities that recorded 270 homicides by officers in 3 months last year. I think it's from 2016 or 17. The FBI said earlier this year that it had counted just 442 in all of the previous year, 2015. It says here that they really went back to the drawing board to see what was working and what was not, and try to get a more comprehensive count of arrest-related deaths in the United States. Controversy over the government's lack of official data on killing by police was set off by the fatal shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri in August 2014. The death of Brown, an unarmed black male, 18 years, led to protest riots across the United States. The FBI's annual count of homicide by police, which depends on chiefs voluntarily submitting their numbers, was discredited after it became clear that the method was recording less than half of all the killings nationwide. So, I mean, that's to suggest it's been terrible, and they've been underreporting it.
So that it stuck out even when you began this whole conversation, Michael, a couple times and touched on it. This stuff comes even after, so it's consistent. It's getting caught on video as you described, but these major, really high-profile incidents from around the country the last few years, and this is done so blatantly and smugly, with seemingly without being any effect from any of that stuff, from any of the outrage, from any of the promises to make this. I just wanted to point out that Senator Irwin, friend of the show, has introduced a bill that will require basic training for police certification, which includes training in implicit bias, violence, de-escalation, and mental health screening. With the current composition of the legislature, I don't know how well it's going to go through at the moment, but
worth of shit. They've already been doing all those things.
The protest that we did that we went to today was actually on top of the incident in Minnesota. There was the other night a shooting reported over in part of Ypsi Township and the Apple Ridge neighborhood, and then these folks kind of the police were there. They tried to disperse the crowd. There were a couple of folks that refused to disperse, and so the female Shatina ended up getting punched and caught on video by the police officer. So that's what prompted, in addition to what's happening in Minnesota, that's what prompted these protests today in Washtenaw County, and I believe they were up in Lansing and everything as well. So I mean, it's an issue
as well. Terrible video on that one.
Let's get ready. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you.
I was going to just say we've got video. I believe the Amanda report.
I found an article from not too long ago. It's interesting because it's 2015 when they started this new FBI data program, and it indicates that young black men killed by the U.S. police at the highest rate in the year. There was 1,134 deaths. They were 9 times more likely than other Americans to be killed by police officers in 2015, according to the findings of the Guardian study that recorded a final tally of 1,134 deaths at the hand of law enforcement, despite making up only 2% of the total U.S. population. African-American males between 15 and 34 comprise more than 15% of all deaths logged this year by an ongoing investigation into the use of deadly force by police. The rate of police-involved deaths was 5 times higher than for white men of the same age. There may be another solution, and it sounds like I'm saying this with some kind of selfish subjective intention, but I say this because I do really believe that to really make this work and to be accountable, there's got to be some financial accountability. And it doesn't have to be a death. It could be some kind of injury that arises out of some kind of falsity that takes place. And they should do it in state court. And the state court should be able to assess this and hear trials on issues that violate these particular conceptual protections, that we don't grant, this wide, broad immunity to the officers. Jeff, they can do that under state law, couldn't they? Couldn't they amend that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, here's a couple of things, right? One is that the answer to how to get some justice here is at the prosecutor level. The prosecutors either prosecute or they decline to prosecute. This guy who killed the man with his knee had been like 10 times had complaints, and the prosecutor failed to prosecute, denied prosecution. That prosecutor was Amy Klobuchar. So we need to be having this discussion at a national level with some candidates that actually have some standing, and not Amy Klobuchar, who declined to prosecute this cop, even though he's done this 10 times before, and Joe Biden, who says, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. That ain't gonna get it. We need to.
I'll tell you something else. just like in the Ferguson case, the officer that killed Michael Brown had been awarded time and time again, like the Medal of the City's key to the city, because he brought in so many hundreds of thousands of dollars that kept the city going. Therein lies the problem. A lot of times these officers have been tasked with being they're financially responsible for the function of the city. They take it a little bit too seriously. So they're not looking for it, right? And it's harassment, and they pick on certain folks, and it escalates, and none of it's right. I mean, it's systemic in the problem of who they pick on, but it's systemic in the amount of unnecessary policing that takes place, right? I mean, that's the whole point of that trial court commission thing. They complain that there aren't enough warnings given. You don't have to give everybody a fucking ticket. You can give someone a warning, tell them to leave the area. You don't have to escalate into something else.
Oh, no, Michael. Warnings are discouraged. If you're called to the area, if you're there and something's wrong, you should probably give them something harsh, something where they got to go to court for. Because if you're giving too many warnings, you're going to get talked to by the lieutenant. Then your name's going to get brought up in the staff meeting, and your lieutenant and your sergeant's going to get embarrassed because you got a guy giving too many warnings, and that's not real police work.
But what I know, and that therein lies the problem. Some training for that needs to be done. But I'm telling you, this is we could go to every single one of the police chiefs across the state, show them this report that the governor asked for, and point out the flaws that are here, that they're doing things unnecessarily, which in turn are creating liabilities, which every time you arrest someone, there's risk. Someone could get hurt. Something bad can happen, right? And the government's taking on that responsibility. So the point being that even if it was right, even if it was clear that it was too much, the finances that are at stake in the way policing exists right now, and the way in which the cities and townships and villages rely upon the money brought to the court with these defendants that they arrest and screw with, they're so dependent on it that it doesn't matter, like morally, it doesn't matter if it's policy, it is like the lifeblood that keeps them uniformed and keeps gasoline in their vehicles.
How much outrage there's been, even. I mean, even it's been exposed, and they still just plow right through it, no problem.
Yeah, that's a good segue.
It would be a good time to see Amanda's video, right?
Let's go to Amanda's.
All right, go to it.
See what the deal is.
Hey everyone, it's Amanda here with PGT News, sponsored by Komorn Law. We're outside of the Washtenaw County Jail right now, where we've got a group of protesters gathering the brutal attack and arrest of the Grady L. family, particularly Shatina. And we're here to ask some questions as to what brings people to this location today and what they'd like to communicate to everyone.
My name is Tony Brown. Can you hear me okay? My name is Tony Brown. I'm an Ann Arbor resident.
And so what brings you here today?
Well, what brings me here today is a lot of things. I'm here for social justice. But the main thing I'm here is to let the people of Ann Arbor and Washtenaw community know it's not about color. You know, this is just another ploy in the system to divide us. But first, we don't know all the facts on this case. So we need to stand together and demand the facts. What are the true facts, okay? Why is a woman being beaten down in her front yard? Is she defending herself? We don't know. So that's one reason I'm here. I want to know the facts. I'm tired of governments and cities running people over. That's another reason. It's time to stand up. I'm here for my people as a voice. I'm also here to tell people, and any voice that will listen, July 7th, 2020 is Blackout 2020. Do your homework. The hashtag is Blackout 2020. We're not going to spend any money. We're not going to use any electricity. We're going to try to stay off social media. We're going to try to live self-sufficient without spending a dime into the system, without putting a dime into the system. just back in the 60s when we didn't ride their buses. We want to have the same impact on one day, just to test the system, to let them know we're here. Because we work. We're hard-working taxpayers, American citizens, just like everybody else. And we don't deserve to be beaten, and we deserve transparency in government at all levels.
Hey, folks, I'm here with Trammell, and we're at the Washtenaw County Jail where we have a group of folks that are protesting. And Trammell, what brings you here today?
For support. Definitely the injustice within the justice system and the way everybody's lives matter to me. And it shouldn't just be, no matter what the reason is, everyone should be treated fairly and equal. This is supposed to be the land of the free, so we should have the opportunity to express ourselves and be who we are without being put into a label or, you know, in that type of way. It's just, I'm just here for support, love, and stand our ground. Like, we need that in the fight for our rights.
Absolutely, thank you. And are you a resident of Ypsilanti?
Yes, my whole life. Yes, a resident of Washtenaw County, been here 30 years. My whole family been here their whole life. So yes, we have been a resident for many years.
So let me ask you this: in your experience as being a resident, what do you notice what is a typical interaction with a police officer?
Oh, great question. Where do I start? How much time do you have?
You got as much time as you want.
It's never really equal balance. Definitely with the citizens of African American descent and the officers. Definitely with Pittsfield Township, with Ypsilanti Township, now it's Washtenaw Township. Like, I think a lot of these officers needs to have a psych evaluation before they become an officer, before they get their badge, because a lot of them comes from military backgrounds, army backgrounds, and racist backgrounds where that they shouldn't even be on that force or on the force to be doing their job that they're doing. And it makes it hard for people, the citizens, and make them uncomfortable because they can't live their lives, everyday lives, regardless of their background, whatever the case may be, or whatever they're doing, but it still should be a protocol where justice is met at a certain level.
Folks, this is Amanda from PGT TV reporting from the Washtenaw County Jail here in Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor, Michigan. And as you can see, we have a great group of protesting the police and the lack of interaction with people in a positive way. And quite frankly, people are tired of it. And most recently, we had a situation in Ypsilanti Township where Mr. and Mrs. Grady L. were arrested and brutalized. And this is sparking some of the controversy today. Back to you, Michael.
It was bad.
All right, we're back, and you were just watching Amanda Joslin reporting on behalf of Planet Green Trees. What a great job, Amanda! Really, that was first of all, a fantastic job, and very informative. And we should probably set that up when we were talking about the incident that occurred in Minnesota, and an officer that had been, identified and not prosecuted in the past, and unfortunately nothing was done, and he ended up killing this man involved with an arrest. But what was it that happened in Ypsilanti that caused this particular outrage? Explain that story a little bit more.
Well, Michael, over in the Apple Ridge area in Ypsilanti Township, which this is according to the MLive article here, on the 26th, there was a shooting incident. Police responded to the scene and tried to disperse the crowd that gathered, and Shatina and her husband, Shatina and her husband, the Grady L's, basically, were both arrested. Well, in the process of them being arrested, the husband was tased, the wife was punched in the face by a white officer, and then arrested, and she still remains in custody today. So the protest at the building today was because people are tired of it, and this comes right on the heels of what happened in Minnesota, and then it's just it's time for a change. It's time for a change. It's amazing.
Well, first, they did a great job, and
Thank you.
I wanted to make this point. I don't know that this is a political issue. I really don't.
Mm-mm.
I think both parties are equal to blame, even maybe the Democrats more so. I mean, I think part of the backdrop of what drew this out was, remember not too long ago, there was a president, and I think his wife was the one who helped push forth this legislation on his behalf, but we had the 3 strikes and you're outlaw. That was the idea that they were going to target certain aspects of our society and count the types of arrests, which resulted in felony convictions, and having 3 or more would result in life sentences or basketball type terms of years in prison. And I say that because you could make the argument that Democrats have capitulated to the law enforcement arm of whatever and have backed off. And I could argue that same thing's kind of happening in the state of Michigan, that where the tail wags the dog, kind of where the government is the dog and the tail is really the law enforcement community, but they have so much influence and so much power and so much policy driving decision. We've seen this in cannabis, medical cannabis, testifying, influencing laws. I mean, it's a rather interesting phenomena that unless you are in tune with this and listening to it, you don't realize how much influence they have in policy making.
Do you know the turning point, the shifting event that really got the police going in a military style direction? Can you think of which event did that? It was probably, I think it was early 90s.
No, 9/11 is one, but I mean.
No, it's before that. There was a police incident, a major police incident. It was in Los Angeles.
It was the Rodney King thing, right?
Not Rodney King. There was a shooting. There was a shooting in Los Angeles, and the bad guys had all kinds of military-style rifles. They were wearing body armor and everything.
They robbed a bank, right, Steve?
Yes, it was the bank robbery. And this shootout went on for a long time, didn't it, Jim?
It did.
And that thing got a lot of huge media. And from that point forward, the police got huge support to get, let's start gearing up. And that's in my opinion. That was the really shifting event that got police to go in that, military direction, militaristic direction. How's that, Jim?
I like that word. It's a $10. That's a $10 word, and I probably wouldn't be able to say it 3 times fast.
I may have been in college at the time, and recently I referred to reading, the Plague by Albert Camus, and the classic line that life is absurd, deal with it, don't try to figure it out, kind of thing. But there was also another book we read, which is The Maltese Falcon. And one of the themes of modern literature in America during the modern era of art, let's say, is this concept of it was always referred to in classes like the impotent hero. And you've got like a guy that's totally, and it was always like law enforcement people. And the Maltese Falcon is one of the examples. The guy's like breaking his ass to get to solve the crime, but his life's falling apart, at home, and his daughter doesn't talk to him, and blah, 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 blah. And you could see over and over and over again, Steve, your description of the shootout where the bad guys were better
armed than the cops. The cops actually had to go into gun stores to get better weapons, from what I remember.
But think about all those Mel Gibson, movies and Bruce Willis movies where you had these kind of ragged cops that were, and these were big blockbusters. So don't think that influenced in
hugely
culture. There's 3 or 4, each of them had, I don't even know what they were, like Die Hard and
yes,
Mel Gibson.
It had me excited to become a police officer. Those movies did.
Right. It's the total underdog guy. He's always going a little bit past the edge. He's going to do the thing. He's going to sacrifice policy. He's a little crazy, but you need someone like that. And he's the hero. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he's always against some crazy terrorists or, they're always overpowered. He's got a, gun in his, pulling out of his breast, holster or whatever.
Yeah.
And these guys got, so this is what built us. This is part of the culture.
The Lethal Weapon movies were good for that too.
Lethal Weapon movies. And,
with his anger issues. With his anger issues.
Yeah, he had all kinds of psychiatric issues. I thought I was bad, but
right.
They didn't care about the people smoking pot, which was good.
Well, Hollywood in general has been given, the credits for helping to, normalize the gay marriage and, LGBTQ relationships. Arguably, they've moved forward the conversation on medical cannabis, and certainly cannabis. There's enough shows that have normalized it and made it, but they have failed in this regard. I mean, they've done the opposite. They've created a cultural acceptance of this mentality that I think is
right.
Not fair, and by virtue of it's the hero, it's flawed. It's totally flawed, and it may be good for a movie, but it's certainly not good for every cop being that way. That's like the craziest fucking thing you can think of, right? It's like a bunch of Mel Gibsons running around, thinking that they have no. Anyways, Jeff Frazier and the other quiet people, Rick or Muammar Gaddafi. Alan, you guys got any comments or anything? Jeff, come on. What do you got?
I'm still stuck on the prosecutor. The reason that cops don't get prosecuted, reason that cops do this is because they get away with it. The reason that they get away with it is because the prosecutors don't prosecute. And the reason that the prosecutors don't prosecute is the interesting story, because they probably don't have the power to prosecute these police officers. They imagine if prosecutors went after all of the crooked cops, their life expectancy would probably be pretty short.
We had a case in Detroit, I don't know if you remember, about 15 years ago, where the deceased name was Malice Green, and 2 Detroit police officers, Budson and Nevers, were convicted and went to prison. And the only reason I bring that up is I don't know that it had any deterrent effect on other abuses of people of color during arrests. And Malice Green was a man of color that died in an arrest.
Over allegedly hiding he was allegedly hiding a rock of crack. So they cracked him over the head with a flashlight.
Yeah, he was beaten in the head with a flashlight, right?
Are you serious? Wow.
Oh, it's the craziest story ever.
What was this, the Malice Green story?
It was before OJ. It was as big as the OJ, and then OJ happened.
It was huge.
Okay.
But,
it's about 1995, if memory serves.
Okay.
And you know what? What they did is they then undid Recorder's Court, Alan. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like there was a City of Detroit circuit court that the judges on this criminal court were elected from the city of Detroit. After these cops got convicted in court, the legislature said, we can't let that shit happen. And they literally undid the jurisdiction that allowed that. So these Detroit judges then had to run countywide. Many of them, they retained themselves because they've been there a long time. But it was just, it was a big deal that it was one of the more unique scenarios where a major city had its own criminal court that was set on by its own elected, judges from the city itself and nowhere else. It was And they did. What's that? Okay, I see that. Let me just make one comment. Jeff, you're talking about the prosecution stuff. You're right. It is not, they're almost too much in bed. Like the question shouldn't even go to them as to whether or not they should or should not prosecute. There should be an independent prosecutor. There's supposed to be an independent branch so that those relationships can still exist. What kind of pressures on the prosecutor have to pull that trigger? They work with them every day. They have the duty to do it, but they're not doing it.
It should go to the Attorney General's office.
There should be
right to the Attorney General
investigative agency that gets into these things immediately and has the authority to go and like the jurisdiction of the Attorney General. But I'm telling you, Jeff, if they pass some legislation that there was civil liabilities, this would change everything. I'm just saying, like, because they're financially driven. And if forced to and motivated to because of the fear of losing that budget, not being able to work, if they have that over there, they will train them. They have no motivation to now anyways. If they lose one of them, they go to jail. They wash their hands. They go on. It can still function. You have to cut them off at the purse strings. That's my theory. All right. What are we doing? Are we taking anyone respond? Rick, did you want to get in, or Jamie?
I think we need a break. He's asking for, yes.
All right.
That'll lighten the mood. That'll certainly lighten the mood, because when we come back, we're going to get into some Sean Blackman performance.
All right.
Music.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Don't get busted without a good attorney. Check out the new show, Kicking It with Komorn, with your new hosts, Earl and Michael Komorn. Hi, I'm Earl Carruthers. I have been a client of Michael Komorn's, and if you are with an attorney that you don't feel comfortable with, I do want to let you know that there are good attorneys out there. I personally went through quite a few different attorneys before I came Komorn. I could save you some time and some pain. Komorn is truly a loving and kind-hearted attorney and passionate about the law. And he won't just make you take a plea. He will definitely see all the options and let you make a good choice from there. But if you do need a new attorney, or if you're looking for a good attorney to start off with, check out Komorn. Hi, I'm Earl, and want to just let you know, I know how it is to trying to go through and find an attorney. It's kind of sometimes it's just a shot in the dark. You don't know. You don't trust them. You're not sure how they're going to fight your case if you're just another number. But I do want to reach out and let you know that Komorn definitely is a solid attorney. He leads with passion, with care, and he doesn't just lay down. And he doesn't just let you take a plea. Doesn't let you take a plea. He is there for you all the way. He'll give you all the options. And if you need a fighter, he's there for you.
launched.
We've completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan, and nationally and internationally, and even in Spaceland. There's an argument that we evolved from the cannabis plant. Let's just be honest, okay?
Ow, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing?
420th episode.
If you're a connoisseur, you're going to want the good stuff. And if you want the good stuff, you're going to go for the mom and pop stuff because that's the good stuff.
It's just a real pleasure to come here and congratulate you on your 420th show, and thank you for having me on a few times over the 420.
The system is built to herd you into pleas of guilty. There's a herding mentality. Follow the leader over there, jump into the river, try to swim across and not get eaten by the alligators. It happens every day in courts across the state of Michigan. There are ways to avoid this. There are issues that can be identified. There's motions that can be filed, evidentiary hearings that could be had, and ways to fight back and push back. Don't get herded into the Mirror River. Don't get eaten by an alligator. Don't get herded. Call me before you plea. Attorney Michael Komorn.
And now back to more Planet Green Trees.
Say it's 420 somewhere.
Alrighty, we are back. Thanks for staying with us. We're very excited for this next segment. Been talking about it for a long time. We're very glad to have a live performance here tonight on Planet Green Trees. It's by a very talented artist. His name is Sean Blackman. He's a composer, producer, performer, multicultural world mixed music for the studio recordings, film, TV scores, and theater productions. I think he does it all. We're very excited to have him here. He's a talented local artist, and we ask you to support him if you can. And without further ado, please welcome Sean Blackman.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, Detroit. Thanks for having me aboard on your ship for the good of the good people. All right. So I'm going to play a mix of covers, some originals, and we'll see. Hopefully all that's watching enjoys it. And if you don't, I'm so sorry. My heart goes out to you. All right. Here's my rendition of King of Pain, please. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard an applause in there. I missed that. Sure can. Got a little, was it distorting a bit? Okay, cool. Hopefully that helps. All right. I'll give you an original. This is inspired by my Armenian roots, or heritage, I should say. My roots really are here in Detroit. So my Armenian heritage, my Detroit root, and my love for rock and roll and flamenco. All kind of mushed in there. A lot of Armenian songs are in odd time signatures, so I composed this song in 5/4. So. Even the sound of one person clapping is like, I'll take it.
It's hard to virtually. You did a great job. It was amazing.
Thank you. Let's see, what else we got for you? How about a little Beatles? Thank you, guys.
How many strings are on your guitar?
Just 6. It's regular, normal. Okay. But this is actually made in Michigan. It's a Michigan-made guitar by a brilliant luthier named Gary Zimnicki. Mm-hmm. Lives down in Allen Park. Yeah, little plug for Gary. That's okay, right? He deserves it. So, time for one more, or how are we doing?
Sure, please. Love it.
Yeah. Okay.
Please.
Let's see what we got. All right, here's a fun Brazilian classic. I love playing this song. Never gets old for me. It's one of those. It's from the movie soundtrack Black Orpheus. The film came out in 1959, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. and it's titled Samba de Orfeu by Luis Bonfa. I'll be humming this all day tomorrow.
Nice. And you know what? You were right when you said it's going to get stuck in your head. That song had a catchy little beat to it.
Ba-da-ba-ba. Samba.
Bravo.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks again for having me on board. I really appreciate it. It's my pleasure.
Very nice.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thank you very much. That was great. So,
you're welcome.
Thank you, Sean. Awesome. Really, it's fantastic. Please, do we get his website up there? We put that up there. Always put right the. All right. No help.
SeanBlackman.com is how we can get in touch with you.
That's right.
Yeah, totally. Or
Okay.
Sean Blackman Facebook or Instagram. All those things.
Okay. Do you have any things coming up that we should like performances?
Yeah, right. Then
I guess. I forget. What? I wake up and it's a world with no COVID.
Yeah.
I must have been smoking too much. Back up to that question, I guess.
I was just going to say, then my alarm clock went off and I woke up from that wonderful dream of having a gig. But I do have a song I'm releasing soon. I'm hoping to launch on June 1st, and I'm going to blast it all over my social media pages. It's a video along with the audio of a song I recorded inspired by Ethiopian jazz. And I recorded it at Blue Nile Restaurant in Ferndale with a stellar Detroit lineup with Amp Fiddler, Dave McMurray, Ron Otis, James Simonson, and Larry Fratangelo, and DJ Head. He's the DJ that toured with Eminem and stuff. So everybody's like Detroit famed musicians, and I'm really super excited to be releasing that.
Very cool. Very cool. You'll have to, once you release and all that, we'll have to have you come and give us a little launch party.
All right, cool. It'd be my pleasure. All right. Thanks again, everyone.
All right.
Thank you for coming on.
Okay, you're welcome.
SeanBlackman.com. Thank you, Sean Blackman. Awesome. Really great. And should we continue on? We don't take another break now or anything like that, right? Do we? We should get right back into it. That was really great. I think we
got to go.
We should have him back. See if we can make him the house band. That'd be great, wouldn't it? I'm sure he's got other things to do, but maybe we could bribe him or something. I don't know. Get him on.
If we don't go to a break, the sponsors will get very upset.
We'll go to a break, and then, Michael, we got your next topic. What are we going to talk about?
Music? No, we've got... we'll pick it in the break. Let's go to break. We'll figure it out when we come back, and then get Jamie and Rick hyped into this if we can. Jeff Frazier and Steve and Alan and Jimmy. All right. We'll be right back, and you're listening to Planet Green Trees episode number 466. I Can't Breathe. We're talking more about that too. All right.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2020 Digital Hash Bash broadcast, hosted by Jamie Lowell. Jamie, you're out there, aren't you?
I'm here, hosted by all of us. I'm not taking
Absolutely.
the credit, that's for sure.
Nope. A whole big gang of us. I'd like to introduce our next guest speaker here. BDT Smoke Shop opened in 1973. They're the #1 head shop in the Southeast Michigan for more than a dozen years. This gentleman is the face of BDT Smoke Shop, but he's so much more, and I hope he gets a chance to explain that. Let me introduce Mr. Curtis Gore.
I hear a bit of an echo.
Hey, Curtis.
My intro was so good, He didn't feel the need to stay around to say anything. Awesome!
Well, unfortunately, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can, Curtis. Yay! Thank you.
Oh, boy. Poor internet
There he
connection,
is.
I think.
All right.
Just as we thought things were going well.
You're doing
heard
great.
you in
We
the
can see you
background.
and hear-
I could hear the intro.
We can hear you and see you. Keep going.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's a pleasure to be on our first ever virtual Hash Bash over Skype. This has been fantastic. I think it's time to have a little fun. Can you still see me?
Mm-hmm. So there you go.
We got something big going on in the background here. Kind of chilling things out here at the Hazel Park BDTs. Well, it's obviously been a tough time for all of us. But we're going to do our best getting through.
You know, Curtis, it's difficult to know what is an essential service and what isn't. How's BDTs doing with this whole situation? Are you an essential service? Are you able to service customers?
No, we are, all our stores are shut down right now. But fortunately, with our gas and chemical company, Bumblebee Gas and Extraction, we've been actually servicing the community by providing isopropyl alcohol and non-denatured alcohol and actually turning that into a sanitizer. And we're still
so awesome.
Curtis, we may have lost you. That's a shame. If you notice Curtis's background, those of us who can still see him on freeze frame, he's at the Marijuana Museum, which is existing in Hazel Park. Jamie Lowell's been there before. That happens to be a great rack of magazines and other memorabilia, not just from Cheech and Chong, but other remnants of the era. It's quite an impressive place, Jamie.
Yeah, we did a Jazz Cabbage Cafe broadcast from there.
Sure did.
Helped to show it off and had a really great lineup of people there participating.
Yeah. That hat he was wearing itself deserves a story. That was pretty awesome. And a fog machine for the Hash Bash show? That's great.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting into farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
Hi, I'm attorney Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLC, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
Drug cases.
Thanks for, okay, that's a good one. Thanks for staying with us. We're back. Episode 466, I Can't Breathe, and staying in the theme of officers acting badly, one might say. I want to draw our attention to topic number 5, which is 91 more drug cases tied to ex-Texas cops to be dismissed. This is, I mentioned earlier, situation unfolding out of Houston, Texas. I do know that there's a new prosecutor, county prosecutor. I think the county is Harrison, Jeff Frazier, if I'm not mistaken. And they are these officers got I think they got prosecuted, if I'm not mistaken. And now instead of doing what, for example, Jessica Cooper did when it was found out that there was some bad police officer activity, where their office did an internal investigation and they decided internally, without telling anyone why, which cases would be, at issue because of the officer's bad behavior, but they weren't going to let anybody know other than these are the ones we've identified how they got there. Now, in this case, in Texas, where these officers have been convicted of crimes, wrongdoing, this prosecutor is just dismissing cases in general of all that are attached to these particular officers. If I'm not mistaken. Let's read the article if we can. But Jeff, I want you to be ready to tell us about it. You know what I'm talking about. Is that big news out there in the Houston legal community? What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's been thrown off the front page by all the COVID stuff. It's big news in Houston. It was a clear setup and lie, and this guy for years and years just a crooked cop. He killed these folks. So yeah, no, the big cities in Texas have pretty good leadership in the police forces and even in the prosecutors. The big cities in Texas do. You get out of the big cities, it's a different story. But Harris County is pretty progressive. They don't prosecute marijuana offenses.
That's what I heard. It's a new prosecutor, new county prosecutor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was not there was a civil servant in there for many, many years, and I think he retired. And then a woman prosecutor got elected, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very progressive place. In fact, they eliminated cash bail, and I believe that the judges themselves became party to the litigation and part of the settlement. I mean, they eliminated cash bail system in Harris County. There's some fairly decent stuff that's going on down here.
This has been said over and over again. Unfortunately, if a case gets thrown out because 1 in a million, the court finds that the officers lied in the search warrants or misrepresented facts or omitted facts, material facts, or reckless in the facts, and they've been essentially deemed a liar. There's no registry that it goes on to. They may go out that afternoon, seek out to get a search warrant from the same judge that's on the last one using the same stuff, and it's going to fly. No one's going to check them otherwise. But what I'm suggesting, one of the interpretations there is this prosecutor is looking at cases from these officers who were in previous cases deemed to have been perjured or lied to in the affidavits, to which my takeaway is that the county prosecutor said all of those cases that they got search warrants because they're liars need to be dismissed. We don't even need to go beyond that. Their affidavit becomes meaningless. I mean, that's what I'd like 91 more cases connected to them that would be overturned, is the point here. And the connection, as I'm reading this article, is that
Michael, not to drop any names on that Oakland County case, but Detective Mark Ferguson.
Certainly, right. So, and let's talk about that in a second, how they handled that, because I didn't probably do that justice, but this is Gerald Goins, whose cases are being reviewed because of this drug raid, but he was a narcotics unit for the Houston Police Department, coming under scrutiny following the 2019 drug raid in which Dennis Tuttle and his wife were killed. They alleged that he lied to obtain the search warrant to search the couple's home, claiming that he had a confidential informant had bought heroin there. Later said there was no informant, that he had bought the drugs himself. They alleged 5 officers, including this officer were injured in the raid. And in 73 cases announced in February that were attached to this detective Goins, he was the only witness to the alleged drug bias. They identified that, and that was not going to fly. Like, so they, they tainted him. And when they examined his case, if he was the sole material fact that moved the case going. And here's another one. So in the 91 case announced Thursday, this officer Goins wrote affidavits that were used to secure search warrants in drug cases. So they're just any affidavit of him to say lie. The starting point is throw out and is not going to stand. And that's prosecutors taking the lead, seeking justice as they're supposed to. And let's compare that, Alan, to what we know about Jessica Cooper and the Mark Ferguson case. He was caught lying in an affidavit where and it was actually reported, I think, caught, and maybe other officers reported, but there's no question that he was caught lying. He's later fired, if I'm not mistaken, and is working in another police department. But how did Oakland County, if you recall, go about that investigation?
Well, as I recall, he was caught lying on the record in one case, and the judge even said that on the record, and then the Oakland County prosecutor dismissed all the pending cases where they had to rely on him as a witness.
Not all. It was not a lot or all of them. In fact, what they did was they did an internal review.
Yeah.
And they said, so because there's people that had cases with him involved that they didn't touch at all. I mean, there may have been some other independent sources that were involved in the case. He may have been the affiant, but there may have been another witness. But it doesn't undo the fact that he was just like the case we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
The culture of those drug task forces allowed it to happen, inspired it to happen, encouraged it to happen. We're rewarded for it happening with no accountability whatsoever. If anyone wants to watch the interview with Karen McDonald last week or the week before, we brought this up to her. Steve Miller said to her, since I've been working for Komorn Law after returning as a police officer, I've been amazed at the way in which, especially Oakland County, gives a free pass to the drug task forces, really all over the state. And her response was, "You're right. That's the culture. Not, I've heard about it. It's awareness and acceptance. It is the unequivocal scenario of the tail wagging the dog. Right there. The tail is shaking the dog, telling the dog what to do. And I'm not making excuses for Jessica Cooper, but I always thought that, I don't know if she hates marijuana. It seemed like she did, and to act the way she did, to prosecute this case like she did, would seem like it. But they don't start unless.
Did you just say you don't know if Jessica Cooper hates marijuana?
What's that?
Yes, Jim.
You don't know if Jessica Cooper hates marijuana?
Well, listen, I would say this. That under the theory of the tail wagging the dog, is she out there kicking indoors? Is she doing, this fucking the drug task force is bringing search warrants that they're signing off on?
Who's charging all these people?
Okay, well, my point is this: that they kick in the door, the cops. They bring the case there. A decision has to be made. Am I going to be the type of prosecutor that gets rid of medical marijuana cases, or am I going to be forced to politically align myself with these out-of-control rogue sheriffs? I'm not making an excuse for her, but I'm saying if it's true, as Karen McDonald said, that it's the culture that they dominate. She's got to be Mother Teresa in order to beat them back or something. And she's not Mother Teresa. She's got no, And it's a political death probably to try to change that culture. That's all I'm saying. I'm not giving her an excuse. I'm just talking about it from a reality of her scenario. She may never thought, like, I'm going to be the one that's going to charge all these cases up to the Michigan Supreme Court about medical marijuana. The investigation that take place, to be brought in, very rarely are these marijuana cases like overseeing the investigations by the prosecutors. That's kind of like federal U.S. attorney stuff. They usually kick in a door, get someone to roll. They go to another place, kick in a door, get what they can, leave some out there, file a bunch of fucking, requests for warrants and see if some charges get filed. Yes, they do ultimately have to make the decision, but when the sheriff's department's sitting on a bunch of forfeiture and evidence room full of plants, they can't say, nah, we're going to not sign the warrant. I mean, there's a political alliance.
Oh, that's not true.
Yeah, but Michael, in the Ferguson case, I don't know what's going on in Texas exactly, but we're very well connected to somebody who he was involved in their case, and the facts of that case are very similar to what was surrounding the facts of the reason he was fired. So in which he went in and took a look at potential evidence before there was any other warrants or anything like that. So how in the case of Texas, are those old cases in which the police officer was involved and the facts were similar like that? Those are getting dismissed.
Yes, that's
so. I mean, I don't know. So, was there ever an opportunity to ever do anything about that, to revisit that, or?
This is the point I'm making. It is. They did their own internal investigation. What did it show? We don't know. They themselves decided what was good and what was bad about that investigation, and then they decided of the hundreds of cases, let's say in that 4-year span, which ones was he involved?
There was like 17 that got dropped or something like that.
It wasn't enough. And what does it say for the other officers that were in his unit that observed it in those 17 times that made it such that they would have to be dismissed? Don't tell me that being around that, not reporting it happening before them, testifying in cases that forwarded the misrepresentation in the affidavit, sticking to the story. I mean, all get passes. It's just him and him alone. They got groups of drug task forces, teams. He's the only one. Nobody knew what's going on. That is a crime. If they don't know what's going on, they don't have safeguards in place, that other people don't have a requirement to report it. This is my point. We know all the fucking time that they're lying in these affidavits and search warrants. The courts there give every benefit of the doubt to the officers. If a magistrate rubber stamps it, that's good enough for the judge at the time that you might challenge the search warrant. So when you catch them with their sexual organ in the mashed potatoes, and that visual is there, that they have forever been tainted as someone that doesn't have some mashed potato fetish or something. You cannot call them anything other than a mashed potato fetish with the sex. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. They have been deemed outside of the realm of actors that can participate in the system because they have been caught lying. And those that are participating with them, that gave them the mashed potatoes, that looked away and didn't tell anyone the mashed potatoes, all of them are equal to blame. And that example there is emblematic of the problem, that it is a culture and they protect their own, and it is 100% thin blue line stuff. Jeff Frazier, what do you say?
No, you nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And again, the prosecutor is the key, but it's like you say. Do you think that some of these prosecutors that we run across really have the power to go after any of these task forces, or for that matter, any cops that are abusing? I don't know, man. I think that the prosecutors compromise. And
I tell you, I don't get it. And I tell Michael and other people this story every time. I look at like a case, some of the cases we have, and I think, where the hell did the prosecutor connect the dots to bring these charges against these people? And I tell Michael, there's a prosecutor we knew in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. And if I sent her, I would, send her a warrant request on a case. And if I didn't have everything connected properly, she would call me and scream at me and tell me what she needed if I wanted to have her authorize on that case. And the prosecutor taught me and through that I was like, wow, I got to have my shit together on my cases before I even send it to the prosecutor and embarrass myself and get yelled at. So I think it's on the other end of the spectrum with the drug teams and the drug prosecutors. And the drug prosecutors obviously don't look at probable cause in the same way that the regular prosecutors do over where the real crimes are being committed. Why is that, do you think, Michael?
I agree. It's
money,
rather shocking. And, and I think that you wouldn't see that kind of prosecutorial interaction with the drug task force guys. They're given a pass to the front line, war on drugs, I was going to say, Oakland County has some policy now where they don't even give the affidavits and search warrants. They try to say that the work product, that they don't have them, that they're between the, I don't know. I mean,
and then one step above the prosecutor are the judges that essentially condone the behavior of the prosecutors and the police officers. I've seen that too since I've worked in your office in a few different places.
Yeah.
I swear to God, when I was a police officer, I did not think these things occurred. I swear to God. I was blind to it.
All right, so we got so we pro police show tonight.
Well, I mean, is it so bad to ask to them to just do the right thing in all circumstances? I don't think that's really, asking too much of the police.
We got a long way to go before.
First, we could ask them to do, more good than harm. That seems at least a reasonable next step. Yeah.
Maybe what we could also do is ask that they seriously consider signing up for a job they know is going to deal with those types of issues prior to them signing up. And if they find themselves in a situation currently, they're in a job working for the force and they find that they can't keep themselves under control, they should excuse themselves. That's what should happen. But, that's not going to.
This is a leadership problem in these departments. If leadership didn't condone these sorts of actions, they would not occur. And I mean, Steve, I think you explained it pretty succinctly that the reason people get tickets is because if you don't get tickets, you get grief.
Right.
And
you do.
This is, I mean, it's a bad parallel, but if the leadership of these departments made it abundantly clear that this type of behavior would just not be tolerated, that the job was to de-escalate the situation, just like Steve said, that is exactly what would happen.
Clearly hadn't seen Serpico.
They write those tickets to pay for their
connection.
They write the tickets to pay for their time going out and to benefit their jurisdiction. If you ever sit in court on a morning where they take pleas and you listen to the judge announce the fines to each person, in an hour, a judge can announce easily $3,000-$4,000 in fines. It's a lot of money. It's the wrong way to make money for the city, though, or the township.
In that footage that we saw looping back around to Minnesota, in that footage we saw, it wasn't just that one officer either. It was him plus two others that positioned themselves on that Floyd's body, in addition to that one gentleman. So there were four officers that I saw anyway. So, you have this, it was amazing to me to see that not only were there so many officers that were just willing to sit there and, not say, okay, that's enough, even just nudge them, he didn't have to announce it. but it was out of control. And then the other thing was, you think about all those people filming. How long did that man sit there, unable to capture his breath, while people, bystanders, filmed him from all angles? I mean, how much could they do? We don't know, but nobody tried.
Right. Somebody could have done CPR, or at least tried to do CPR on him, and he might have lived.
I don't know. Put yourself in that circumstance. You got 4 cops there, and you're going to jump in. They're going to now attack you and put their knee on your neck. There's not much you're going to be able to do at that point. It's going to escalate a situation. I don't even know what's right in that point. Really, who in their right mind is going to start attacking the police unless there's a good amount of people to really help in support of that? It's just a crazy situation all the way around.
One of those police officers should have done CPR. As a matter of fact, they probably all have CPR training. So one of them should have done it.
I agree. I shouldn't have got to that point anyway, where a guy needed CPR.
But they did nothing to help him afterwards. By the time the EMS got there, the man was dead.
It's sad situation.
There were protesters standing outside of the main cop's home address. I don't know how long they were out there, or if they're still out there. I haven't followed it this afternoon, but there were protesters right outside his house, and there were a line of officers blocking, but there are people protesting, and at last I heard they were planning to stay there until he was arrested. I think they should all be arrested, and they should all be charged with the same exact crime, whether they were standing there or whether they were actually the one with his knee on the gentleman's neck.
Amanda, do we know that?
All of us, if you or I did that, we were all standing around. That's what they would do.
Yep.
Yeah. Amanda, do we know that address? Can I go out there tomorrow and stand with them? In protest?
Well, there is apparently another protest in I want to say Detroit tomorrow for this particular issue. But unfortunately I will not be in attendance as I have prior commitments.
It'd be interesting to see what this prosecutor does, because this really is down to the prosecutor. They get away with it because they get away with it. The only person that can keep them from getting away with it is the person that prosecutes crimes, and that's the prosecutor. But they hide behind the prosecutor, and they hide behind the prosecutor's immunity, absolute immunity, to decline to prosecute anything she sees damn well fit. And it basically translates to their impunity. And that's what we got. They get away with it because they get away with it.
Qualified immunity means impunity.
Impunity.
Yeah, qualified immunity
reminds me of what they probably have in their pants when they have to wield such power and in excess.
Well,
little dick.
I was joking before about making him write a check, but first of all, that would never fly. Can you imagine the pushback if Rep. Irwin showed up and the legislature introduced a bill to allow for a state court remedy that directly allows you to sue a police officer and the department and the city that employed him for things like failure to train, assaults, lying, perjury, things like that, and all the other ones, false arrest, but without some kind of outrageous shield to create a question of fact, or to rebut the immunity, I should say. If there was some pullback of that procedure, first of all, can you imagine, that's such an unpopular view. I want to introduce legislation that allows citizens to sue the police in state court and get money damages. Like, that's not, who's going to vote for that? You can see a political group of legislators that are embracing that, and the type of protesting by gun police entities that would be like going around the Capitol and stuff. It would be crazy. You know what I mean? We talk about like, we're not following the law anymore. You tell us. I mean, that's the type of thing that could really like erupt. I would tell you something. They're totally justified in doing that. I'm telling you, like, just because it seems to be part of their play, may be retaliatory, vindictive at times. The fact that those sheriffs are not following and enforcing the order, I mean, why not? You should be like, fuck it, we're gonna just, all immunity's out the door for you fuckers. You're not gonna follow my orders. We're gonna do this executive order. That'd be great. I'm just kidding. It could all happen. It could all happen. There's no rule of law anymore. Anything shit could happen. But certainly, it wouldn't. In a Republican, Congress, it's not going to happen. But there's certainly a political payback if there ever was a time where there could be a little bit of a payback. Like, am I right? Like, since when does that happen? Where like when they have the chance to say we're just following orders, and they say, nah, we're choosing to use our discretion here and not follow the orders. And that's what we do. We're police officers. We just, like, fuck, it's totally crazy. It's but because of that. Anyways, so who's gonna, Jamie? You think we get Rep. Irwin to do that?
Talk to him about it.
He may lose some friends if he even talks to you about it, but I'm saying it's certainly a way. So what is this an important issue to him? Does he ever talk to you about? I mean, not just interested in a bill, but that there's any kind of. I mean, there's no Michigan pushback for that. There's no real. Is anyone within our current legislature that champions this issue? I mean, I get that Irwin has, but there's not like a pack of people that are coming forward, even from, the major cities that have, senators or representatives.
No, it requires a lot more support than exists to make a change somewhere there. That's
an understatement. And probably therein lies the problem, right? Because it's politically unpopular. Because this generation of legislatures not only watched Die Hard, but they watched Lethal Weapon 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through number 8. They have been brainwashed. I'm just kidding. All right, so we're wrapping it up. We're close to the end here, right? Did Rick leave? I feel like he left. Maybe
he had internet issues.
All right. Well, please, let's. We're not doing a musical segment. I see that Steve Miller, the CCE section, not to be confused with continuing criminal enterprise. Why are we doing entertainment tonight, Steve? I guess we just bailed on that, right?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about all this going on, so I'd rather save my review till next week, I guess.
Nervous about what? Movie reviews?
No. What's all these riots going on everywhere? It's protests. It's a little scary, I think.
Yeah, unrest and anarchy and the rule of law being thrown out the fucking door is
in the midst of the age of the virus.
I noticed some people were looting with masks. They're wearing masks.
Just, I don't know. I can do the movie review, I guess. I'm not wimping out. You guys want?
No. I get it. It's unsettling. It's all unsettling, I'm trying to put pressure on you.
Maybe a little Men in Black International will lighten things up. What do you say? All right.
Please, indulge us.
All right, let's do it. Good movie for the entire family. I don't know if Jim's still around.
What is that? Is that an 8-track? What is that? Those things don't exist anymore. Nobody watches. What is that? Some kind of foreign
DVD.
My kids wouldn't even know what that is. The kids would not even know what that is. Anyway, I'm kidding. Right?
DVD. I like. I'm from. We're from the materials generation. We like our stuff, don't we?
Yeah.
Anyways, my two favorite actors currently, top two right now: Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson star in this. They also had the starring roles in Thor Ragnarok. And they are a good comedic duo. And I saw it in Ragnarok, and I see it in this movie as well. I'm sure we'll see these two in some more stuff, but it's typical Men in Black stuff, aliens running around everywhere, and someone's trying to blow up the whole universe, and these two chase around all the bad aliens and try and come to a good and happy ending. So I recommend it highly for the whole family. It's good fun. There's a lot of good visual special effects in it, and a lot of good comedy. And as a bonus, I never knew it about this movie. Liam Neeson has a major role in this movie, and Amanda, you're gonna have to watch it. Men in Black Internet.
Yeah.
Your Liam Neeson in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that. I'll cue that up right after.
There's a scene in there where Chris Hemsworth has his shirt off, and just so everybody knows, that's what I look like when I have my shirt off.
Okay.
Just so that's clear. And then I'm adding a little element to the entertainment corner for a CD I started listening to yesterday. There's Our Things CD. I don't know if we could get this one on 8-track, but
man, that's a throwback. A CD.
Even get this on cassette. But anyways, it's a band called Chevelle, 90s band. And this CD is Sci-Fi Crimes, and it has the song Jars on it. That was one of the hits. This CD had a few hits on it. They're a great three-piece out of Chicago. They're a loud, hard, good band, rock and roll band. It's two brothers and a brother-in-law, I think. So they're a family band, and they're really, really good band. If you like a more hard-edge rock, even leaning towards metal a little bit, I guess. But great band. I just that one popped into my mind for no reason whatsoever the other day, and I was like, I'm gonna play that CD, and I've listened to it a few times in the past couple of days. And there is the Cannabis Entertainment Corner. Does anybody else have anything? What have you been listening to this week, Michael? Kids screaming? Any wiggles? Do you guys got any wiggles going on in the background? No.
Anyone have a family member or know of a person that plays the game Adopt Me?
Where are you looking to adopt out?
You adopt pets. I don't understand it. That's all I know. You got to take them to the doctor. The people running around this virtual world trading animals and stuff. It has turned into outrage in some households. I don't want to say mine, but we may have caught that virus too. Just kidding. It's really. Anyway, so no,
you can't catch a virus in the virtual world.
I know. I was joking, like getting consumed by it or caught up into it, but yeah. So there's no music. It's like it's some kind of like silly game and game noise in the background. But I did see this. Okay, fine. Okay, there was this last week only because I was ranting about Bob Dylan's. Defending his
Christian albums.
Right. So there was a this may be the yeah. So it was his 70th, someone's 80th birthday or something like that, and he was talking about his creativity as an artist, and I found this kind of interesting. It's about Dylan on sacrifice, the unconscious mind, and how to cultivate the perfect environment for creative work. And the quote here is, people have a hard time accepting anything that overwhelms them. And I think there's something said about, I think like the whole theme of his, like sometimes in the eye of the storm, you find clarity, but you have to be aware of it, kind of thing. So yeah, so he talks about being in an environment, accepting all the unconscious stuff that comes to you from your inner workings of your mind, not having the block of the outside world interfering and just kind of anyways, so it was an interesting thing. I know I was talking about it, but it's a great article in Brain Pickings. If anyone's interested in a good discussion about some of the creative tools used by the kid from Minnesota, of all places, right? And songwriting and things like that, or just anyone that's interested in the creative juices and finding that space where things, kind of flow, or you feel like you're in the zone, or it just kind of things start happening naturally. It's, I think the other thing that I might take away from this article was that it happens in chaos and you can't create it. So you have to be ready for it all the time. It's around you at all times.
Right.
There's a line in this Dan Auerbach song, which is like waiting on a song. It's like songs don't grow on trees. You got to pick them out of the breeze. That kind of thing. They're just all around you kind of thing. Got to listen for them. But anyways, that's all I got to say. As if I'm an artist and I know what I'm talking about.
Sounds like it.
Right. We should have had our musical guest on to discuss that a little bit. But all right, I can stop talking. Jeff, Jamie, Amanda, Jimmy, Alan, please.
I just will still never feel the same way about mashed potatoes. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to eat mashed potatoes now either.
That good for you.
I didn't listen. I have to defend whatever you're thinking. Like, where did you come up with that? Komorn and the fetish of mashed potatoes. What are you doing over it? There is a famous comedy bit from the 30s that's like and actually it's sampled on a Beastie Boys album, if you know what I'm talking about. What is it? It's like you've heard it before, but it's like, if it's going to be that kind of party, I'm going to put in the mashed potatoes. That's the line from the album. But anyway, so me and Jeff have used that as a metaphor for once you can't unsee that. You know what I mean? Once it's happened, that's all. You've been forever tainted, kind of, I guess. Jeff, is that what we do? Or am I just making shit up?
Jeff, unmute yourself.
Sorry.
The horror.
Wish we could play that clip from that Beastie Boys, but you guys, you maybe have heard it, but you had to. Alan, so what do you got to say? Nice shirt.
Thank you. I think I'm going to go make some mashed potatoes now. I'm hungry.
Gaddafi hat.
Oh, here's my Gaddafi hat. See?
I say that because a lot of people don't realize this, but you are surrounded by a harem of female bodyguards, as Muammar Gaddafi had, in a very eccentric kind of way, but was looked up to by all the other leaders in the Middle East because of that, I think.
Yeah, they did.
Impressive.
They're like the Valkyries.
They did a great job protecting him.
Until the end. Up until the end there, they did a great job. That's funny. That's a great line.
Yeah.
They're like the Valkyries.
Not to laugh about that. I'm just saying it was tragic. Anyways, so before this, so we got Jamie, anything?
No, I guess it's time to pretty much wrap up. Just to mention, we didn't get to it. but the barber can no longer cut hair, according to the appeals court. So it will. I don't think Jim's here, but he was saying that he wanted to see that go to the Supreme Court. So looks like the next step was just taken for that to happen.
I did not fully read the opinion. I heard about it. I was curious as to what the if they put. I want to see if there's a lot of blame placed on the circuit court fact finder. You know what I mean? Because, and I don't know, Alan. Maybe you can help me on this. Do you think the appeal was de novo review, or do you think it was, error, plain error or whatever?
I can't say because I haven't seen the opinion either.
Well, right, I understand, but that would be a major. So what it was, just for purposes of what frame it was a emergency temporary injunction, and then later a injunction and an evidentiary hearing that then sought, like, the case is over, so they get an appeal pretty much. There's no trial. There's no other resolution. So they took the case, and I, so is it that they reviewed de novo based on the evidence, the transcripts or the pleadings, or do they have to find error in the circuit court's finding? That's the way I'm framing it. You know what I mean? And I think both of the answer to that is significant in terms of. It may not matter. At the end of the day, the Court of Appeals could say that's some crazy shit. We got a pandemic. It is what it is. This is what we're doing, and we're finding this favor, and that judge is wrong. And then they said, and we're finding that he made an error for these following reasons. Or, by de novo review, they're just doing that. You see what I'm saying? I think this is the kind of opinion that unlocalized it, because there was clearly a lot of locality. You know what I'm saying? Like he was. I think I'm not giving the judge a decision, and I'm not going to say that's not reality in the court system, but it was certainly a politically motivated. Even from the guy's lawyer, from the barber's lawyer, he kind of intimated that,
We will know tomorrow, Michael. Friday mornings is the day that the Court of Appeals releases their opinions. They used to do it Tuesdays and Fridays, but since the COVID emergency, they've only been doing it Fridays. So the parties on the case would have got the opinion today, but the rest of the public, unless we have access to those parties or their attorneys, we won't see the opinion till tomorrow. But we'll know the standard of review, whether or not it was de novo review or just, say, an abuse of discretion.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying for conversation purposes, I'd be curious to see how they went about undoing it. That's always worthwhile, right? But unequivocally, they made a decision that enjoined the barber, that it could not remain open or whatnot. And I wonder if isn't there other ways he could have done it? Couldn't he have opened up his garage and had a chair in there and invited a person over one at a time? Couldn't he have done that?
He could have not forced the issue right now during this time.
No, but I'm just saying, I'm saying, well, maybe the license doesn't allow him to cut hair. He'd be doing it illegally, but.
I just want to also point out that Jeff Frazier was kind enough to post a YouTube link there that, maybe Amanda might want to click on after the show is over about mashed potatoes. It's in the.
I'll make that note. I'll take a little look later.
Yeah, Jeff was very resourceful on that. Thank you, Jeff. So, anyway, great show, Michael.
All right.
All right, let's call it there. Alan's calling it. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Nice.
Everybody be safe out there. Thanks for listening on Planet Green Trees, and we will be back at you next time. Check out Jazz Cabbage Cafe every Tuesday from 4 to 6. Check out the Elevation Station, currently doing telemedicine certifications. Find Amanda there. Steve Miller.
Yes, you will.
Steve Miller's available for phone consultations and couch consultations if you need to get something off your chest.
I've got him on speed dial.
I'll help you find your Zen.
And is Jim still with us?
No.
Oh, I think Jim cut out a little bit ago. I'm not sure why.
And Alan, of course, will certainly, if needed, provide you a Zoom partner. And what happens within the Zoom room, it's up to you.
Whoa. Oh, you little rascal, Alan.
Alan found like some secret rooms in the Zooming. So you gotta, he is there for you. He will Zoom you.
I see that.
He's always up for a good Zoom.
I try to limit my Zooming.
Actually,
he
I am.
Zoom and tell. He doesn't even Zoom and tell.
I have gotten good with some of the advanced features in Zoom. So if you want to try anything or practice anything in Zoom,
This is his thing. He tries to get you in the Zoom room. Like, come on, let's go practice. Come on, come in the Zoom room. Just meet me there.
You know what they call that, Michael? They call that grooming.
Yeah. Well, it takes
We're
cyber.
seeing it happen.
I think it takes cyber sex to a new level, which is maybe what we need with this COVID emergency.
And meet Alan in the Zoom room at 2 o'clock tomorrow. He'll be hosting. He'll lure you in with cannabis and like happy hour and stuff like that. But you're on your own when you get in there. I can't promise your safety after that.
Right.
Michael's never going to be the same again, and he's just going to blame it on COVID.
Are we still on the air?
We're trying to get on.
Uh-oh.
What?
Okay.
All right, fine. That's good. That was just for.
All right. Well, I'm cutting out early, Michael, tonight. I'm going right now.
All right, the show's not over, Steve. Don't start talking. All right, let's end the show. It's over.
All right, let's end it.
Okay.
I was going to leave so you two could talk.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
Welcome back. I was digging those tunes. I was jamming. Really, if I wore underwear, I would throw them on stage, but I don't wear any underwear. We'll come back to that. But anyway, I have someone really awesome to introduce you guys to. He is basically going to be the first ever virtual dancing and, the tunes coming out with the cannabis plants. Tom Wall is going to be jamming out with his plants, and this is going to be something you do not want to miss. Tom?
How's it going? So, hopefully, can you guys hear me well?
Yep.
Okay, you guys can hear me good? Okay. So, what I'll do is I'll just start off giving a little bit of an explanation on the technology that I'm going to use to perform this. But this device takes two electrodes, one that hooks up to the leaf of the plant, and then one that hooks up to the root. And the one that hooks up to the root looks just like a spike like that, and it goes down in the roots. And through the two, what happens is it can register the electromagnetic fluctuations between the two, and it basically makes a wave pattern. Through that wave pattern, assign musical notes per size of the wave, allowing it to generate music. But the interesting thing about it is that when I got into this, and I've done it with all sorts of different types of plants, but that they not only can play music, but they can play music with you. And they seem to kind of respond to what you do. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I plan on obviously doing this in the Diag, and I was kind of really going to be surprised to see how it would react with that many people around. But this particular variety here is called Cosmic Splooge, and the name of our band, Cosmic Knot, came out of trying to name a cannabis strain a long time ago. And it's the idea of looking for a particular flavor that's very rare. It's kind of like along the lines of Acapulco Gold and the Colombian Gold. You can't find it very often anymore. But this is the culmination of a lot of years of searching, and it's still not quite there, but we're really happy to have this. So this is the Cosmic Splooge plant that really started the whole thing in the first place. But I think we should have it all hooked up now. So let me turn up the volume and allow you guys to hear what it sounds like by itself, and then I'll chime in with it, and we'll try and do a duet. And then I'll let it back to you guys because I know we're trying to keep things rolling. So without further ado, this is the first time a cannabis plant has made music that I know of on any videos, let alone on a virtual form and live facet. So this is really cool. And the fact that this is for Hash Bash is even cooler. 50 years ago, people were going to prison for this. And now we get to have a plant play for everybody. So here we go. hopefully that translated well. The type of music has been called organoleptic music, meaning organoleptic is evaluating with the senses, and then flora meaning plants, so plants evaluate with the senses. Creating music, so organoleptic music, it's a new variety that just kind of came to life in the recent times, and I've been lucky enough to stumble across it and figure out how to play music with plants, and they seem to play very beautifully along with you. They kind of follow you. It's really strange. But I really appreciate all you guys getting together, and once again putting this on and making this happen still and persevering through all the madness. Really cool that you guys were able to do this, and thanks for everything. Thanks for having me on. I'm gonna let you guys keep on rolling because I know you got a lot to do still. So there's a bunch of amazing musical acts still coming up. So I think Nick Satel is up on deck right now, and then we got a few other artists after that are gonna be really awesome as well. So to hang out, chill out, and have a good time listening to some amazing music. Thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, Tom.
That was pretty cool, man. So that was the first. It was captured here.
Will work. Everybody take a photo. Social media is where this is at. Next year this should be 10 times as big. Post your photo. Next thing, if you got a joint, now's the time to pull it out.
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Komorn Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Komorn Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in your time of need. Komorn Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Komorn Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.